what is a bi-directional scan tool? Essentially, it can do all the things that a regular scan tool can do, with the additional benefit of sending commands to the individual components or modules of your car, which is really good when you're trying to nail down your diagnostics without having the distractions of everything on the car being on at the same time. Another reason why I like this scan tool is because it's wireless. So inside the box, you'll be met with your Bluetooth OBD2 adapter, a charging brick, some cables, and of course our scan tool, which is a 7-inch Android tablet that probably requires a charge and a software update right out of the box, which Otofix is giving us 2 years worth of free updates. But even at this competitive pricing, what makes this better than the scan tools that cost about $100? And do you really need that bi-directional functionality? Because after all that you really want your scan tool to do is to read the fault so you know what to fix, and once it's fixed, clear the code so you can be on your way. And although all scan tools will do that, let's be honest, when something goes wrong with your car, it's usually not just one code that pops up, but a few. Say for instance, your car is overheating. So you probably get a code about the oil being low, the coolant being low, maybe 1 or 2 codes about the water pump and the other associated modules. So you start off with the simplest thing first and top off your fluids. But if there's no obvious sign of a leak and that warning still persists, you might reach for a new water pump, especially if you're close to that interval. But what you could do here instead is reach for your bi-directional scan tool to test all the related modules in the area. And perhaps you do need a new water pump, or perhaps you need a new radiator fan, thereby allowing you to properly diagnose the underlying issue that's giving you the overheating problem. Not saying that you shouldn't also change out the water pump if you're close to that interval, but changing out the water pump isn't going to do much if the problem that's causing your overheating is the radiator fan. So let's see what we have going on the M235i by connecting our adapter that even has a light on it to help us find the port. But the first time you connect to it, it is going to ask for an update. As it's updating, you want to do things like turn off your lights and fans in order to save power. But if you do plan to be here for a while, you'll definitely want to hook your car up to a battery tender so that it doesn't completely drain the battery. However, the update itself doesn't take all that long. And as soon as it is, you'll be met with this Android tablet configuration. But pretty much everything that you need are going to be at your bottom hotkeys. So you have the back button on the far left corner, while you have the home button, that's going to be for the scan tool portion, so the Otofix app. While the home button with the Android icon, that's going to bring you back to this configuration of the tablet. Your frequent apps tab. You also have a browser, a camera, your volume and brightness controls. And then this is going to be the connection for your Bluetooth adapter. While the one right next to that that's not connected, that's for the Bluetooth adapter for the battery. We don't have that connected, that's why it's not there. But this one, it should connect in just a second. And you can hear it beep on right there. And as soon as that's connected, you can jump into these two things, which allows us to jump into all of the cars that we can work with. You can see here that this is not just a tool for BMWs, but many other brands of cars as well. And then the next button next to that is the services portion, which is kind of like the hotkey function, if you will. And pretty much when you're jumping into your tablet, you're going to be activating one of these functions. So it's nice that they put them all there at the bottom. We'll connect. Now, you will also get this message saying that you can kind of log in or scan your car so many times. The limit is 10. After that, you will need to register your device. And I would recommend doing this before you make your commitment to buying this, because maybe it doesn't have a feature that you're looking for specifically. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a second. Because as soon as this connects, it'll read out your VIN to you. You say, okay, make sure that's all in order. And if it is, it'll kind of sync up to the car. All of this is in real time, so don't expect it to be necessarily as fast as downloading or watching a 4K video on YouTube or anything, but it is pretty quick for a scan tool from all the things that I've had it done so far, and even in what we're doing right now. But once it brings you into the main menu, you'll have 4 options. You'll have diagnosis and services. We'll touch on those in just a second, as well as your hot functions and vehicle profile, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's just your vehicle's information. But I would say most of the time you can figure out whether or not that this scan tool is for you or not by jumping into the hot functions and seeing if the function that you want is available. Because when we're doing services to the car, we're pretty much going to be doing one of the things in the hot functions more likely than not. So like under the maintenance section, you can see here that we have like our oil light reset, as well as other resets that we can do. And I wouldn't say that you should necessarily get this tool for that, because you can reset these things with the trip meter. But what we aren't able to do with the trip meter is the brake bleed routine. And I'm not saying that you necessarily need to do this with every brake bleed, because if you have the same issue that I had about 2 years ago, where when it was raining, the brakes would apply themselves automatically, and that's the brake drying process. What ended up being the issue is that there was moisture within the lines. So it caused that system to overreact, especially when it was raining. And all I did at that time was flush out the system with a brake bleeder at the reservoir and some new fluid. I didn't need to go into the system and do the brake bleed routine. And I would say most of the time that's going to get you by. You don't necessarily need to do this. Of course, BMW is going to recommend it. And if you want the most complete brake bleed, then yes, you do need to do this. However, you don't necessarily need to, but if you have the tool, you might as well. Another thing is when it comes time to changing out your coolant, you'll want to purge the system of any air, and that's what you can do right here. Now you can also do this manually by turning up the heat and then stepping on the gas for a few seconds. But if you have the scan tool, that will kind of walk you through it and ensure that everything gets done completely. You also have things like if you have a show car, you can put it in transport mode. So I would say, don't think of this scan tool as something that you need for a job. It's something that's going to help you for several jobs. So it's not like brake fluid or oil or coolant where you're going to get your money's worth right away, because you're using all of it at that one point in time or at that one service interval. This is a tool that's going to be able to service you job after job after job. That's the best way to think about it, and why I would say it's definitely a good return of investment over a long period of time. But say for instance, you don't see what you want, or you even want to scan the car. You can go into the diagnose section, and in here you can go to auto scan, and it'll take a few seconds here. It's not, like I said, downloading or watching a 4K video on YouTube, but as far as scan tools are concerned, as far as the ones that I've tested, this is pretty fast. It's definitely faster than the small handheld unit that I got last year. I mean, you would figure that all the things that it can do, this is the part that it would be lacking, especially at this price point. But considering that it's powered by Autel and it's an Android tablet, that's probably why it works so fast. So some of these things I already know what they are because of the scan tool that I had previously. The active sound design, I know I disabled that. Plus I have the bypass harness from the Beamer Tech amplifier in there. The head unit has to do with the fact that it's an Android head unit. I coded in a bigger screen. I don't have GPS, and I also coded in the enhanced Bluetooth. So basically I have all of these features and software compatibilities with the car, but I don't have all the hardware like the enhanced Bluetooth. I don't have the passenger side microphone. So just know that if you have also done some of these things, like you've probably done them through Beamer code, then you'll probably have some faults that pop up that aren't really an issue for the car. Because if you go into the vehicle status and check control, it'll say that all systems are okay. So don't necessarily pull your hair out if you have faults, if they can be easily explained of like, oh, I have aftermarket this, or I have aftermarket that, and I retrofitted this and I retrofitted that. So that's probably what's causing the fault, and it's not that big of an issue. Let's look at the first one that we have up here though. So with this scan tool, you can see here that it'll give you information about the ECU. There's your information. And then as soon as you go through one of these functions, it'll highlight them to let you know that you've already looked at it. You can also, let's do live data first. So let's see what our fuel tank level is at. Oh, and this breaks it down the total fuel. So I have 5 gallons left. I think it's 13. So 6.5, I'm just over half. So yeah, about 5 is right. Let's go back. General live data. Okay, let's go ahead and go back. Let's go ahead and do read codes. So we have an intermittent problem here. If we hit that wrench button, it'll describe to us what's going on, the entire fault description as well as what conditions are causing it and our possible solutions. So this is really in depth, where sometimes a scan tool will just tell you what's wrong with the car. Maybe they give you a description, but this kind of gives you much more detail. And if this is enough, you could always copy and paste that fault code and put it into the browser to see what people have said about it. Now we can go into active test. And this is what I mean by the bi-directional functionality of this tool. So hit OK. And we can do things like, obviously it's our instrument cluster over here that we have a fault on. So if we wanted to test the individual components here, we would say, all right, let's go ahead and put the fuel gauge at 20% and active. Goes to 20%. Now let's see if we could put it at 80. And there it is. Let's do our cruise control marking. That seems to be in order. Our oil temperature, we don't have that in the 2 series, but let's see active and see if anything even happens. And of course it failed because we don't have that function in the 2 series. Revolution counter, it's going to be our RPMs, works, followed by our speedometer. Whoa, we don't want to be going that fast, or at least get caught going that fast. Turn signal, and that's if something's defective, while this is normal flashing. So that's what you can do with the bi-directional scan tool. It can send commands to the car to do something, which is kind of what we want with a scan tool like this. So if something was wrong, like if we got that fault and it's just telling us that there's something wrong with the instrument cluster, but we don't know what, by going through each of those things and finding out one works, one doesn't, but at least we're able to pinpoint it versus like, oh my goodness, I have to replace the entire instrument cluster. And if we wanted to, we could also clear the codes, but I'm just gonna leave it here for now, and I'll probably address this individually later on. But I pretty much know what most of these other codes are. The process of all this is gonna be the same. You go into it, and then you have the ability to read the ECU, read the code, erase the code, pick up live data, and do active tests as we did with the instrument cluster. You can also do a report. So all of this stuff right here, that's a fault. It would say do a report, you enter the mileage. What am I at? I'm just gonna say 75,000, or I can skip it. Let's skip it. So if you're using this as a professional and you're printing out a report or you're emailing a report to the customer, you would want to put down the mileage for it. And I believe that you would want to actually do this like before you even touch the car. So you would say like, here's the pre-scan diagnostic. We're going to start working on your car now. And here's the post-scan diagnostic. You get like a small, oh no, you actually get a full readout of the report. It even tells you the codes there too. So that's really nice. Report to cloud, license plate number. I'm just going to put room, current mileage. We'll do that. Save. View report. And this looks pretty professional, honestly. Obviously, when you register it, you'll have your shop name, the telephone, the address, all that stuff so that they can contact you once you've sent them the report. This is really nice. So all things that pass, the faults, and then page 2, how many faults were at each module. Then it will even give you the codes there. So you know how sometimes people will say like, I can't believe they charged me $100 for a diagnostic. They probably didn't really do anything. With something like this, you can be like, hey, if you don't have a scan tool, like, yeah, I'm going to charge you for a diagnostic if you're just going to take my report and fix it on your own or have your friend fix it, whatever. At least this is something tangible to justify you kind of doing a scan for them, because you revealed what the issues are. It's tied by the VIN and all those things right there. You can print it if you have wireless printing. right there. You can also email it. Okay, this is already PDF version. Let's see here. Share. Nope. Oh, you can do email, you can do text, you can do QR code. So if they're there right there with you, this is pretty amazing. Save as a PDF. Just save it right there. It'll either save to the device or your SD card, whatever you had it set up to. But this is pretty legit. So we'll back out of that. And the other portion of the diagnosis is the control unit. So let's say there's not a code that pops up, but something that you just want to test individually. This is why I said the hotkey portion of it is going to be better for people who are kind of just getting into scan tools, because now you have to know where your module is located. Is it under the drive unit, the chassis unit, or the body unit? And then once you go in, you're going to have to keep going down the list, right? So the active cruise control. Let's see here. Let's get something that'll actually take us down. Let's go down into body. And you can see that there are a ton of things that we can go into. Definitely more than what we can cover in one video. Let's see what active tests we can do here. Interior lighting, interior lamps. Okay, let's see here. This is going to be easy enough. Let's see if we get our lights and turn on. And our lights are on. Power window function. Okay. Open passenger side window. That worked. Now let's see if we do close passenger side window. Now if we back out of that and jump into services, it's going to be very similar to where we were just at, but we have a different set of things that we can work on. Maintenance pre-delivery check. So this is kind of like the dealership stuff before they hand the car off to you. You can also reset your oil in here, but that's like not where you would typically go in order to reset it. Let's see here. This is a good one. A lot of times, like say for instance, if you want to see if you can disable the EDC. Oh no, so you have EDC startup. I know that there is a way to like dig through the system and disable your EDC. Say for example, you get Club Sports or something to that extent that doesn't tap into the electrical component, versus buying EDC delete module. You can actually delete it from the car if I'm not mistaken. Tire pressure control, warning and calibration data. Okay. Let's see, F4. Okay, so I guess this is telling us like when it would go off. I was hoping that we could actually reset it or change the parameters in which it pops up. But I guess it's also good too, because if like your TPMS is not functioning under these parameters, then that's an indication that something's wrong. Pre-2015, there's an external TPMS module, and that's why a lot of those cars can work with aftermarket TPMS sensors. Whereas 2015 and beyond, you pretty much have to get the OEM sensors because it's integrated into the system of the car. There's not an external module that you can calibrate and code. Everything is internal. So there are a ton of functions in this scan tool when it comes to servicing your car, resetting sensors, evaluating the values that these things are supposed to go off or turn on. And so it's a very powerful diagnostic tool. Definitely one I'm probably gonna have to make a follow-up video on, because there's just way too much for me to cover in this one video in terms of diagnostics. Now, one thing I just realized under the services tab is that if you go into it and then under powertrain followed by engine and electronics MEVD, there's actually a specific startup sequence for right after you walnut blast the car. This is more important for you N54 guys or people who track their N55s, but there actually is a specific sequence in here. So if you follow this up after you walnut blast a car, it should ensure better longevity, I'm assuming. I've actually done a little bit of research about the walnut blasting, but didn't know that there's a specific startup sequence. But it's nice that this tool includes that as well. Now, this scan tool isn't exclusive to when you're servicing your car. You can even use it when you're car shopping. When you find the car that you want, bring this along with you. That way you can see if there are any underlying issues with your potential future car. As far as dealerships go, I doubt they'll let you use the bifunctionality of the tool so long as they own the car. But they should be more than okay with you scanning the car to see if there are any faults. And I would do this before you go on the test drive. This way you can clear the codes, go for your test drive, and see if they come back. Because sometimes these issues were resolved by the previous owner, they just never cleared the fault. But if it does come back, that's something you can definitely bring to the negotiating table when it's time to figure out that final figure, or simply just walk away. Thereby making this our preferred scan tool on the recommended tool list. To see the rest of that lineup, check out this video, and I'll see you in that one.